Welcome to the 2 Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter at the University of Rochester. This is a podcast in which we take a book, break it down section by section, read it, discuss it, talk about it, have some fun. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. How are you doing today, Brian?
Not too shabby. If Are we monetized or not monetized? Can you cuss right at the start or no?
You could cuss right at the start. There's no
Okay, I
monetization
wasn't
on that.
sure. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna lose our sponsor,
Our one.
our ad revenue. But I'm well. But I'm wondering which is cooler or which is worse, fucking a skull or a couch. Just curious, which one's weirder? Because I
Oh,
think the couch is way weirder, personally. But I'm doing well. Hi, Kaya. How are you? Kaya Stramanis has joined us. She is a translator and an editor and an amazing human being. How are you?
I am now wondering whether a couch and or a skull can give consent. I suppose a skull could give preemptive consent.
I feel like
I
the
just
skull
got
gave consent in that section of that bit of this section. I feel like the
Alas,
skull.
poor Yorick takes on a whole boy, that hits way different now.
Yeah.
As the kids say, shit be hitting different now. Alas, poor Yorick.
Alas, alas, alas. Damn.
Which is nice Shakespeare reference, given that Kaya was comparing this to Shakespeare in terms of complexity and whatnot just a little bit ago in our pre.
Complexity and in jokes. Yeah, it feels like.
Well, it worked out great. I only know three Shakespeare references in total. Alas, poor Yorick,
Yeah.
Pound of Flesh,
Oh yeah.
and I don't know. Oh, happy daggers, thy sheath, run cleanly through. Let's do that one. Why not?
That's a real one. Yeah. To be or not to be. Brave
What's
New
that?
World. Brave
What's
New
that?
World.
Yeah.
Also, go Venezuela. Let's take a moment to appreciate Venezuela's baseball team kicking the shit out of the USA. Sure, they won by 1 run, but they own that game pretty much. John Smoltz, you suck. And also, your announcing sucks, and you are like the least fun grouch that I've ever heard in my life. And hearing you go silent at the end of that broadcast after talking so much shit about how bad Venezuela's team was the most glorious thing I've heard on sports recently. So fuck you, John Smoltz. Go Venezuela. Love it. Baseball's back, my friends.
And consent matters, guys.
Consent,
So,
skull
is
consent.
is Paraguay in the baseball classic or no?
Paraguay was not in the baseball classic. I don't, there's a whole set of like qualification tournaments. I don't know where they were in that qualification tournament, but if they're in the groupings with like Dominican, Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, they're gonna have a hard run at it. There's
Yeah.
not that many teams that make it, and those countries are like historically quite good. The Dominican team that should have beat the US got robbed by the home umpire, but nevertheless, that team is amazing. Like they're loaded. So fun times. Love the baseball classic. We'll be back in 3 years if we have a country, if we have a world.
How are you, Chad?
I'm okay. I just had a weird bus experience with people trying to kill each other. That was cool. Others, I'm good. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about dictators. I
No, Paraguay is not considered a baseball country. Okay.
Thank you, Gemini AI.
Thank you, Gemini. Just
According to, I bet Grok would have some fun things to say about that.
baseball is an American sport. Paraguay is definitely not American.
We did joke that Trump would make some sort of racist True Social thing last night, and the only thing I saw that relates is it just said statehood DJT. I have no idea what that means, but I assume it has something to do with one of these things. But who knows? That guy's not okay. So we are talking about I the Supreme by Augusto Roa Bastos. Today we're talking up to page 165. So we're covering we'll do a brief overview and then we can get into the individual sections because like last week, I think that walking through this, there's some big issue questions. I know that Brian has some ideas and opinions and questions. And there's some big things that we can talk about, but I believe that walking through it will be sort of helpful for anyone who's reading along because this is a more complicated sort of book in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Uh, Big
I need
picture,
a lot of hand holding with
fair.
this.
Fair. And you can lead this discussion since I didn't give anyone much of an opportunity to talk last week. I'll just give this a brief overview and let you guys go. This one has a couple sections that are very occult focused. We get a younger version of Francia where his father is around speaking Portuguese and only Portuguese within the text of the book. He gets a skull. He may have sex with a skull or wants to be born out of the skull. It's a little vague. He probably doesn't have sex with the skull, but I kind of was thinking that he did. We do get a little bit more of the history, but from the point of view of, is it the Robertsons or what is their name? That come and visit Paraguay are some of the earliest people to visit Paraguay after its independence from Britain. They are hosted by Francia, who treats them seemingly rather well until he gets rid of them. And then they write about how his whole place is like chaotic and like he's a despot and things are not good there. And there's a lot of like materials from the compiler that reinforce
Infest the rat's nest.
Oh my God. This is such a menagerie section.
A lot of menagerie. There's a woman with vagina dentata, perhaps. This is fun. Then there's a bit about the history again of the Declaration of Independence, in which the junta is trying to get Francia to be kind of their leader. And anytime that he resigns from them, they falter and can't function. And so finally they're like, yo, you can come back and run it all on your own. It's all you. Go for it. Which is sort of like my analogy would be like if you were a good coach and or manager and you were like, yo, I'm not going to come back and manage your team until you make me the GM, the president of baseball operations, the president, all the things. I want all of the accolades, no one to get in my way, which I want to start by saying I remember too, one of the great lines of Felipe Alfao, the author of Chromos and Locos that Delkey published way back when. There was an interview with him in which he talks about leaving Spain and living in Miami, I believe, in a retirement home or wherever he was, maybe New York. But he said, you know, the thing about dictatorships is they're not all that bad because you only have to listen to one asshole instead of every asshole on the street. And that's sort of the situation I feel like in this book at this time.
Fair. Fair.
Which definitely. So, Kaya, do you want to start with like what your thoughts are so far over the whole book, over this particular section, and any things specific things that you want to bring up that were like befuddling, confusing, or that we like clarified from the start that Brian and I can give it a run at?
So roughly up through page 165 is really confusing to me.
Okay. So the first 165 of the 165 pages we've read so far.
Everything we've read, yeah, I don't think it's not really fair to put me on the spot, I suppose, because I just don't, I still am not entirely sure what's going on. I do think that this week read a lot easier and the pace picked up a little bit for me. I can say I really like the compilers asides. I really like the sections that are printed kind of like newspaper or magazine. I really enjoy the voice. I really enjoy the voice in the columns, probably more than any other voice. Other than that, very small list of insults this week, a larger list of animals, and the dictator has an emotional support skull. So that's kind of where I'm at.
We're going to really hone in on the skull.
Yes, which I think Brian's Yorick Hamlet reference. And just to explain my Shakespeare, I said earlier today that my overarching sense or my experience of this book is what I imagine people mean when they say they don't quite get Shakespeare. And I'm not trying to humble brag or brag about anything, but I unfortunately was one of those kids who was overly into Shakespeare in high school, and at an early age, and started to understand the jokes and sort of the the layers and references.
That's not a brag. That just means you're a nerd.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay,
Hey,
that's fine.
welcome to the podcast, guys. Feminist, comma, dork.
Dork. Editor-in-chief, comma, dork. But yeah, it's kind of what I imagine. I imagine people who, and this goes back to what we've been talking about, who know a lot more about Latin America, Central America, South America, would understand so much more than I understand. And that is a glimpse of the ignorance or ineducation of myself in that part of the world. So I don't know how I feel about it.
There's Brian. Do you want to respond?
No, I completely identify and align with Kaya. It's a very bizarre first chunk that we've tackled here in three pieces, and that I don't necessarily know how it works or what's going on. There's a lot of like purposeful madness, but it's braided with what feels like reportage and facts, and so it just becomes like this. It's a fever dream in a lot of ways, and so I think for me, when I'm reading those types of works, it's just about kind of surrendering to it and letting go of, for me, letting go of control and trying to understand and just like, all right, let it wash over you. Like, I'm basically getting waterboarded by.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like I'm drowning a little bit in this book, but I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Yeah.
My big frame for it right now, which may be completely wrong, but ties into what you're saying about the construction of it and the materials that make it up, but also something you said before the podcast, Brian, about the evolution of the form a little bit. But my current belief or way of interpreting this is that there has been some sort of fire. A lot of these papers are damaged by fire. There's of them. And that the compiler would be someone who has a bunch of records from this like insane record keeping structure that Francia, the Supreme Dictator, had, in which we know that there's thousands of pages and scribes and all this stuff is locked up there. There is a portion of this and is piecing together the internal history of Paraguay and Francia's life, countered by the other written histories or factual things that they can verify about his life or what was going on in Paraguay at that time. So like the compiler's notes that you like, Kaya, there's some of those are written by him, by a figure, a compiler, the compiler. The others are excerpts from real existent books on Paraguay. Like the Robertsons, so you have like you're saying reportage or like documentary style of like, here's certain like truths that are there. And then that's all they frequently are referring to or correcting something that came in the larger passage. That's the dictator saying something pretty bonkers or like defending themselves. And then you're like, well, here's what these people actually said.
Maybe this is like a late night THC theory, but could the compiler almost serve and work as like a third person omniscient narrator?
The book that
Yeah.
I was reading for the first episode, the David Foster Williams one or whatever it is, I think that's right, or Wallace Foster. He talks about the compiler in his section on I the Supreme as like another narrator or another,
Yeah.
and that the compiler is intentionally constructing things in the way that they construct them or sequencing them. So as a narrator within Roa Bastos's narration, essentially.
What made me think of it right now was, we have a fascination with this skull, but but the first person narration aspect of it, right? The very unreliable aspect of it is fascinated with the skull, but fascinated that it's trapped within six walls,
Yeah.
right? And so we're trapped within the madness of the Supreme's skull as he's looking at this skull saying, I want to escape this. And it's like rubbing it like it's this talisman that's going to, like provide him with like, how do I get out of my head? And then we have the compiler who is outside of his head. And this compiler is like, it's like this weird, like it's a very interesting layer, but it feels, to me, it felt very meaningful that the form changes when we are introduced to this aspect of the skull, the fascination with the skull, you know.
There is a part last week where he talks about the I and the he, or is that the beginning of this one where it's like
It's in this section as well, but it was much more prevalent last section and
where he talks
introduced.
about like like the I and the he is born of the I. So like some complicated like philosophical thing. Like you can never. He talks about like I can never name a successor because I was born into being the supreme dictator. Like this weird, almost philosophical idea of like birth and like the ontology of all that. Uh, and oh, here I have it right here. But I forget what I was going to say about that, but I do think that there's something weird going on with like the construction of this madness, and the cult stuff that you're talking about shows up here a lot. There was the
Hmm.
meteor last time, the skull this time that he's rubbing and that's sweating. I feel like there's the north winds show up here a lot, which
Right.
is cited several times in like biographies that I was looking at of Francia, where it believed that when the north winds blew, he made crazy decisions about
Hmm.
like murdering people or enslaving them or
Sure.
whatever. And that's referenced in here too, which would be really kind of funny in terms of like some of the metaphysics of this, is if
Well, like
that little
fates and
detail.
furies, and it's not that weird, right? But
Right.
you said it in Paraguay, and now it's like, oh, it's from the jungle. Like all of a sudden, like we right.
But I think it would be funny if that belief about Francia being dictated by the North Winds comes from this book. The real like snake eating its tail of like, yeah, Francia was crazy. Listen to North Winds, like cited by the Supreme.
Yeah, but another facet of that too was just the way we kind of set off with this section with the herbalists, and then it talks
Oh
about the
yeah.
Swiss doctors, and so like you still have the clash of like the West meeting, the Americas,
Yeah.
and that clash, or even just with like the father having Portuguese, and then this bastardized language of Portuguese Spanish that should not be
We,
spoken, or and then you have like
yeah.
you keep like there's this continual clash of these cultures that keeps taking place.
The Portuguese part, what's interesting about that in terms of going back to the gun section where he talks about the gun and shooting the two masters and
Hmm.
related to the Portuguese is at the point where his father is here, he is younger. Francia is younger, I think like 15. There's a digression about his whole school year, about being in school, being like already kind of a dick, finding the skull, all that kind of stuff. So I think he's younger. At that point in time, like I forget what the exact title is, but Brazil isn't Brazil, but it is a territory and where Portuguese is spoken. And then the junta from Buenos Aires is the other one that's coming for Paraguay, since it's kind of in between the two and is like a space that both would like to own. So like and one of the big clashes when Paraguay becomes independent is rejecting both of those options. Don't no Portuguese, what becomes Brazil, no Buenos Aires, which becomes Argentina. We want to be separate from that. And the dictator is the one who sees them through that passageway. So like he's rejecting his father, who's only speaking in Portuguese, as his father being, a representative of that part of the of South America at that time. And then with the junta, he refers to it as like his relatives as well, like his brothers. But I wasn't sure if that was like brother or like yo brother, like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that wasn't sure, but could be anything. I didn't look that up. But anyways, like that rejection of those two things is made clear here too for in this bit. And again, it like becomes a singular person and a singular voice, which is being constructed through here of his like madness and his sort of rantings and ravings and like insane ideas being the axis around which everything else spins. All of the compiler's notes are like other people talking about the dictator. Like he is that axis, like we said last time, or the axle that around which everything seems to revolve. And he's constructed that as such. But also the world did. He was the one. He's the figure. He's the Pobo slash general manager slash manager slash coach.
Would you be surprised somebody that has all this power and holds on to all this power, just pick somebody in power currently right now in any country that you want? Would it surprise you if you found out that as a child they played bowling with a human skull as a bowling ball? Would that
Nope.
would that surprise you whatsoever? Just pick your favorite.
I'm not. I don't know why I didn't look up bowling inside of the Epstein files before this podcast, but
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
I don't know what
definitely
nine pins. I don't know what nine pins are, but I'm just go with bowling. I'm gonna go something very Midwest.
nine pin is the cool bowling now. That
Okay.
and duck pin is the cool bowling.
But like, yeah, this little shit's been crazy from the start.
Super. Yeah.
His dad is basically like, What is wrong with you?
Yeah, like
Holy
stop
crap.
doing. That's where some of the funniest parts in here are kind of the irony and that disjointedness between like tones and registers, where he's like so overblown and megalomaniac and like windy and verbose and like high, and then someone will just be like, "What the fuck, man? What the fuck are you doing?"
This older, wealthier generation is like, what's wrong with you? Just go like break up unions and murder people. What's wrong with you? You
Yeah,
guys are sick.
you could just chill out a little bit,
I would
man.
never talk about somebody like that in public. Like, what is wrong with this generation?
Isn't one of his main like fallbacks like I didn't put me here, the people put me here.
Yeah, that is
Like
100%. I can't name a successor because it's because of the people. That becomes one of his big things too, which having watched and complained about John Smoltz in the USA Baseball pops up there, where he's constantly like, I don't give a shit about anyone but the fatherland. I'm here for the fatherland only. I'm going to do everything I do for the fatherland here on out, period. That is the person that I'm like, or that is the entity, the concept that I am wedded to and devoting my life to, the fatherland.
Do we know with it's Yale, right, that has the skull and crossbones?
I don't have any idea. That is,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't, that Ivy League stuff gives me hives. I don't belong there.
Well, wherever John Kerry and George Bush and Prescott Bush
I
went to,
think that's
that's
it.
Yale.
I think so.
But like again, this idea of like secret societies and power and skulls and whatnot, like it's unfortunately it's kind of a trope.
Yeah.
It feels, unless you dress up like a clown and have kids come over in your crawl space, like that's something like people don't do like at all. But feels like it's sort of becoming a trope now.
So we're becoming, yeah, all that's weird becomes real. I mean, I believe in
Do we
like
know
little
whose
clicks.
skull this is that he's
Isn't it?
fascinated with as a
If I
child?
understand,
Like,
if I understand this right, and correct me if I'm misreading this. So in one of the compiler's notes is the long excerpt from like
mhm.
his school teacher, his principal equivalent, right? The director of that school, in which he talks about the kids being like forming that kind of secret group, reading all these like Marquis de Sade or like, anti-clerical writings that the I assume Jesuits would object to. And then they go into the catacombs and he trips over the skull and then digs it out of the ground with a knife, starts knife fucking its eye, and then pries it loose and kicks it against the wall. I assume that's the skull.
hmm.
Okay.
I thought he
That was
referred
that
to
was just
that.
my like putting the logic together. That might just be wrong, but that was how I was interpreting it.
Timing wise, so sorry, it's not Skull and Crossbones. It's called Skull and Bones. Is an elite secret senior society at Yale University, founded in 1832, known for cultivating influential leaders in politics, finance, and intelligence. They're known as Bonesmen or the Order, and they meet in a secure building called the Tomb, often engaging in secretive rituals.
Yep. So
Bonesman.
same time,
Around
same place.
around the same time, and I
I
don't
mean,
know like whose bones or whose skull that they are meeting, but it's probably like a founding father person, or if I were to guess, or
it is, yeah. It is too. Like the idea of like those kind of societies and the occult at this point in time makes so much sense. Like before, like a lot of stuff is known, before a lot of information is like shared scientifically. At that point in
Mhm.
time, like it's one of those things. I remember this joke of where if you sent like a computer back to the 1800s, people would just start assuming that if you hit one key, it rained because that happened once. It would just be like the most insane interpretations of how things work. But I could see that. And the Skull and Bones thing is like, yeah, for secret societies. I mean, it's part of the Car Seat Headrest new album, Scholars. It's got a secret society in it.
Very curious to find out what the bumper music's going to be for today's episode. So
I
many
always have
directions
a
it can
hard time.
go.
I have a hard time with that. If anyone has suggestions, send them in. I do like in that part where he's talking about the rector and the school part where he just rails against like the idea of the church. And that section, it's on page 147, where they're like, you're reading about the devil. This is bad. This is exotic thing. He's like, yeah, so were the Guarani before you got here and started converting them into your bullshit, which is just also like nonsense in its own set of beliefs. And I dig that. Like again, there are moments in here where I know Francie is a really horrible person in terms of like enslaving people and making them bow down to his will. And I think that that's going to come in this book after this attempted coup of like 1820. that will become more and more prevalent because it's in here, but it's in the compiler's notes. Like he hasn't done as many of those crazy things since. But at that moment in time where his beliefs are like, you need a strong leader to be the one that's smart and get things organized because these dumbasses are spending money and running around getting drunk and not doing the work. One person could do the fucking job and get everyone else out of there. We don't need a committee. We just need someone that knows what they're doing and being like, you know what, your beliefs in religion are just as insane as anything else. So just back the fuck off with that. Those are admirable qualities in some way.
Here's an admirable quality for you to go along with that. Around the time of his expulsion, he received the sad news of his mother's death. A grievous occasion for any well-born man of normal sensibilities. It did not, however, make the slightest impression upon him.
Yeah. He's a little cold, maybe a little psychotic.
Maybe just a little...
Not right. Not right in the head. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he's a good person.
And then in the next section, I have a skull in my hands. Oh, great.
I'm searching for the secret of thought. That's the thing too. It's like very funny and like that like I have an old skull in my hands is funny. And like some of the bits in here are very funny. And then it'll be like the I am searching for the secret of thought, which is that high-minded, like philosophical, blustery side of it. That shift in register is like almost hard to take. It's a little whiplashy at times, but also like sometimes I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this as my thinking it's funny. Maybe it's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be serious.
Well, it's like to call a skull a calcareous ball. It's like what? Like this is like Bond villain stuff here. What the hell, man? Like your like secret lair with your this calcareous ball I have within my hand, Mr. Bond, may have the secrets to thought. You'll never get away with it, mister. Like what? It's like this guy's an evil genius.
I know. This is part of that. Like when I'm talking about the tone, it's really specific right after that in 152 when he's talking to the skull. And he says, the only thing I'm asking you is your permission to incubate in your incubus cube. I don't want to be engendered in a woman's womb. I want to be born in a man's thought. Leave the rest to me. Okay, kid, if that's all you want. Why do you keep pestering me so? Good Lord. Get out through whatever hole you please. Stop trying my patience. There won't be all that great of a difference. Take it from somebody who knows all about holes. Is that, I assume, after the leave the rest to me becomes the okay kid? That's a skull talking back to him, but that tone changes dramatically if that's the case, where the skull's being like, okay, man, you get after it, whatever you're doing. I know about holes. I've been in one. I'm a skull from a dead body. That's where I was like, that's where I texted you guys. Like, did he fuck this skull?
I can't do a Stewie from Family Guy voice, but if I could do Stewie from Family Guy, I think page 149 is perfect. Would be perfectly read by Stewie. Betrayal by the nanny, ambush, hill bones of the artillery captain of the king's militias. Like that would be blast.
Brian. I think no.
I don't want to do Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart. No, it's like no, I can't do that. It's gonna end up sounding like a weird like Bond villain.
Yeah, I can't do it.
No, I for it to be serious for a second, I don't think he fucks the skull. I think it's like he's seeing the skull as an intellectual womb or like the womb of the intellect. And so I think it would be very funny if at some point it were discovered that this is the skull of a woman and this entire time he's been like pillow talking to a female skull instead of the, stereotypical like intelligent, educated man. And I want to be born of the cavern of the brain rather than the vagina dentata.
Yeah, but what do you think is the juxtaposition of the skull and like, rubbing it or whatever and the birth? But then it goes to teeth and a vagina.
The skull too. We're leaving out one other big shift in tone is when everyone's like, "That fucking thing stinks, man. Get rid of it. Go throw it back in the river. It smells so bad. What are you doing, you weirdo?"
That's my new favorite saying. If I don't like something, throw it back in the river.
Throw it back in the river. They're like, I can't because it's Christian. And they're like, it's not. It's indigenous. It's whatever. They're like, it smells bad, buddy.
Buddy, you gotta let go.
Hey, kid, if that's the hole you want.
I do think it's funny that even the personification of the skull is just like, man, just fucking whatever. Just like back
Everyone's
off.
tired.
Like just slow your roll, dictator.
Slow your roll,
Like
dictator.
not even the comfort skull really wants to hang out with him, it seems like.
Oh man. Yeah, so honestly, like I know, like I feel like this book is a challenge to read at times, where like there's concentration, there's the various forms that are coming in and out. But I also find it very fun to read and very funny, and reading it in
Mhm.
sections as bits, as if these were like documents they picked up instead of like a continuous novel that we're reading 60 pages of like right in a row for this podcast. Reading it like in these little chapter chunks as like random bits, I'm finding very entertaining. And the parts that the history still confuse me a bit because I keep forgetting who Cavagnas is and what the what's the other thing? There's another term for like the kind of group that the Caballito. I don't remember exactly what those are or know their significance, but like still within that, like his descriptions, his like kind of maddening descriptions of stuff are very funny and do like make it clear like all these dipshits are fighting over this place and he's just gonna like take over and he's plotting the whole time. He's like double agenting everyone. He's like got a mission to like, and I think in his mind, has been fated. He's been born of the skull of man's intellect and rationality, and like he's more adept at thinking through like these orders where he's like, we have this city, and like, what fucking city? What country? Nobody's like putting together a government. They're just sitting around like whoring and gambling. Like, this is nonsense. Like, he believes that he is superior in those ways and probably is to some degree based on these descriptions as untrustful as they might be, seem like probably likely, at least a little bit. And that's yeah, it's kind of fun. Like he is like seeing himself shoot there. So I don't feel as lost in the historical parts this time around. I feel like they make a little bit more sense just by knowing the greater frame and then just riding his voice for his like, I'm taking over, man. I'm gonna take over.
So is that where we're at right now? Is his like slow ascent or his
So
eventual ascent to power?
yes. So the last section of this, the last perpetual circular, which again is about history. So I think that those sections are about the history. Seems to be from like 1811 after there's been the battle of like what do they call it? It's spelled in multiple ways in different places I looked, but Tacuary, that battle where things kind of fall apart is what opens up this moment where he can step in and he is working with like the junta and also spying on them, I think, and trying to manipulate both sides in some regards. And then he backs away, he retreats from that and says he doesn't want to participate because they're not listening to him and they're not doing the right thing and they're not making the country the way it should be. And then when they bring him back, is when they're like, we'll let you be the supreme dictator now. So this is the moment where it's like right at that beginning part of the independence of Paraguay, and the independence being like not just declared because they're like fuck Spain, but also declared in the sense of like now we're gonna have a leader. It's going to be this guy along with this other partner, and they're going to like make our country now. They're going to do this. And the way that they're going to do this is we're going to let him take over forever because it makes sense to have one like a king or whatever. Like you are the one, the shit, how to do this. You're the one who reads all those books. You know about this like this Rousseau dude. You understand this French Revolution stuff. We don't get it. Like we like not that. So like why don't you just run this because you're the only one who knows this stuff. So you could do it forever because that'll be a better solution for us to become a country than being privy to like or being under the control of the Spaniards, the Porteños or the Argent, what will become Argentines, the Buenos Aires people, or the Portuguese that are over in what will become Brazil.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how do the talking dogs factor into all?
Yeah, yeah, we sort of elided the talking dog section that
Now we're there though.
now we're here. My least favorite thing in fiction are talking dogs, but these aren't talking dogs, in my opinion. So these are where it is a bit later. Like, what years, doesn't it say somewhere in here what years the Robertsons are there? They are specific, like, real life figures from history who do visit
And these are
the
not the Swiss guys. This is a new group, Or
They
no?
they're the ones that do the painting and stay with the woman with that might have vagina dentata. So
Oh,
they
right, right,
they
right.
get in there, they claim they write a book saying like we have penetrated the Chinese wall around Paraguay and have entered in and seen what life is like behind this curtain, behind this wall that we're not that nobody else has been into. And they get kicked out and they leave and they write this book. And that's the book that's being quoted in the compiler's notes. That's a little bit later in time, and they're the main source, from what I can understand, of like the outsider's perspective on how batshit crazy Francia is. That they're the ones who start the like the North Wind is the thing that's directing his decisions. They're based on like all this occult knowledge. He is not this like supreme leader who knows about the French Revolution and is implementing like a good leadership. He is truly insane. And he also is like reading this bad thing. At that point in time, that's a little bit later. I'm guessing like in the 1820s, if I remember right. So time has gone on. There's maybe been this coup, whatever. Francie is talking to his dogs or hallucinating shit like pretty wildly. Here, what is it? Hero and what's the other one? Sultan? Yeah, and like he seems to be just truly like thinking they're having a conversation, interpreting their words in his head, and then saying things like, "Oh, I'm not going to reply to the dog right now," or "I'm not going to share what Hero said with these people," but is having those conversations. And I think that that's supposed to signify truly his madness. That these British people are there witnessing this dude who's talking to his goddamn dogs, who are just barking, obviously, talking about this like woman that they're staying with, and like truly like mentally crazy, and they leave there and start writing about like this place is kind of all fucked up, guys.
Yeah.
You
I
may
was
not, you
wondering
don't know because they won't talk to anyone, they don't interact with anyone, they're just on their own doing their own thing, and that thing is a little batshit and a little dangerous.
a little batch, a little dangerous. I was wondering if the dogs were like actual dogs or if it was more of like symbolic or allegory to have hero and sultan, like something that is sort of the dictator and something that is kind of an independent. But the hero is the old one who is like the crotchety, like limping or three-legged one or whatever it was on its way out. And Sultan is the new order,
I like that. That's a great interpretation, a great way to read it.
possibly.
Possibly. I no, I like it quite a bit. Because it is like the hero, the figure who like leads the revolution or whatever is dying. The Sultan
Mhm.
who's like imposes order and will and like structures things according to their desires, that's the one that's in charge now. So that does seem to make a lot of sense to me.
1 point for Kaya. Um, while there's a bit of a lull, I wanted to bring up the fact that strikes me, one thing that strikes me as interesting over and over is how Francia seems to, at least from my understanding, has seemed to want to kind of not necessarily isolate Paraguay, but like we're talking enclose it and keep it in its own thing and have its own influences and not be ruled or, bothered or attacked or anything by the outside world. And yet there's all this, everything is a melting pot, all the multicultural aspects and the multi-religious or belief aspects of the occult, the not occult, the Christian, even down to the fluidity of the names where he refers to, I think it's one of the Robertsons, William, but he calls him Guillermo, or like with the
Hmm.
the Swiss guys, one was John, but he calls him Juan, but it's like changing, it changes from like line to line or like even on a sentence level from clause to clause. It's constantly switching. And so there's like no one what's the not register. I can't think of the word. Not register, not lexicon, not rhetoric. Um, like there's I don't know, there's not like a established code. It just switches
Yeah.
all the time. And I thought that was really interesting for to depict someone who wanted to just have everything be Paraguay. It's still constantly fluid with everything else of the world outside of Paraguay.
Yeah, so the French people that you referred to, Juan Renger and Marcelino Longchamp, and that's the one that he calls Don Juan Rengo, which is different than his spelling of the real name, which is
Mhm.
Rengger.
It's the
They
Swiss guy.
arrive, they're physicians of Swiss origin, arrived in 1818 in Buenos Aires,
Hmm.
where they strike up a friendship, and then it seems that they go on to find the reign of terror depicted by certain observers was in reality an oasis of peace in its rigorous and rustic isolation. So they're going to Paraguay after the Robertsons have been there some years before, and had reported on this reign of terror. The Swiss people come after that. Just to,
Oh, okay.
just to clarify, because that's in page 114. If anyone is listening along and wants to source that, that's where it says they arrive in Buenos Aires in 1818. Um, they go on. They were warmly received by El Supremo, who offered them every sort of facility for their scientific studies and the practice of their profession, despite the cruel experience he had had some years before with two other Europeans, the brothers Robertson, as will be seen.
Got it, got it.
So I think that that's the order of things. The fact that this is shuffled, and even though it's not like completely shuffled, it's not like super. I mean, some of it's asynchronous, in which like that will happen, where we get the Swiss people and their part, and then we get the Robertson story. It's not like so chaotic that it's like you can't. You're just like reading random scenes. There is like some sort of order. The perpetual circular seems to be the through line of like chronologically moving along so far or over this last little bit. But the fact that it's shuffled makes a lot of that really hard because like the perceptions of the outside world or the perceptions of where his mind is at any point in time goes from like the completely senile and insane 1840s where he's talking to Patino about the Pasquinade back to like that childhood where he's like becoming a dictator and talking to the skull that he cuddles in bed, to like this 1920s version where he's paranoid, is ruled by the occult and various signs and omens, and is like instilling a reign of terror in Paraguay. And they're all a little bit different, and switching between those two, like as documents, is a wild reading experience.
And then just before that, what makes it even stranger is like this heroic aspect of him where he sees the corruption and the evil of the juntas and like doesn't want anything to do with that. And like, no, let's just isolate. Like this is all screwed up. Let's not do it.
Yeah, and
Like
he's
there's
got a
something
good
that could
point.
be admirable in that, but then you know it ends up being awful and terrible, and like you become a different type of terrible.
It's
But like you can see like the spark, you can see the seed of like, oh, that was a good idea. No, it was not a good idea. Like,
Yeah, like shouts back to Pynchon for like his entropy stuff, where it's a closed system, it will fall apart.
yeah,
But also he has good reason to not want to involve anyone. The Portuguese are trying to take over, the Spanish have taken over, and earlier than that, the Guarani are taken over by the Jesuits, or they attempt to. Like they come and like are trying to conquer them. That's who he's also rebelling against. I mean, like, get out of here. Leave us to our natural life. But the natural life I think in his world also includes the occult, which then brings you into like a more suspect area of belief and action.
but also like there's that vision that's very similar to Ezekiel's in page 163, where he sees like four beasts, and he has this
Oh yeah.
right. It's prophetic, and
Yep.
it's I mean it's like pulling straight from a prophet that's venerated by three major religions, and so it's like I have that part of me too. Like
Yeah.
like I have sex with a skull, maybe.
This you know what this
But
is
but but
starting
your but your stuff is really weird too, with like beasts and face of a man and body of a locust or whatever. But he has that vision, and that's what like this. I'm led by maybe your God too that I need to do this. Like it's a very
messianic.
like yeah, like if he just did that, people would be like, okay, like sure, sounds good. We're Catholic. You can go for it. Sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. You know who he's starting to remind me of a little bit is Alex Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no.
Like it's
Yeah, which, unlike Alex Jones, who seems sometimes to be tortured by his own,
chosen
um,
by God.
yeah, chosen by God, or say tortured by his own convictions of like, this is what I believe in. One thing I do sort of respect about Francia is his mercurial nature to be like, ah, yes, like the Robertsons, these like, writers, but then after a few months, he's just like, I don't like you anymore. Be gone, and just like deports them, like sends them away. And then the physicists, like not pro deportation by any means, but just the fact that he doesn't seem overly worried about sticking to one through line, like one narrative as a leader. He's like day to day, he's like, you know, my army of rats in the cellar,
Oh,
and then the
yeah.
next day being like, yeah, I
Oh,
could they could be gone. Like it doesn't. It's I sort of appreciate that.
All
I
right,
guess.
let me read you his dream in my best Alex Jones voice. I don't have an Alex Jones voice, but just imagine
Should I get should
this
I
is
get
InfoWars.
should I
Okay,
get
here we
my
go.
I can do it
Page
right now.
163. My rat nursery had turned into a caravan of men. I was walking at the head of this teeming multitude. We reached a column of black stone in which a man was buried up to his armpits. Superimposed on the image of the man was a rifle. Buried up in the middle of the barrel was orange tree. All the execution by firing squad. The man buried up to his armpits in the stone appeared immediately black too, the size of a trunk of an old palm tree. He had two enormous wings and four arms, two of them like a man's hair, horse's tail, whipping wildly about his head. Like, sorry that if it spoke, speaker alert, but like this is freaking crazy.
That you got a little evangelical rap in
Yeah.
there, a
Yeah,
little Jimmy
yeah.
Swaggart. I listened to kind of listen too much Alex Jones, not his actual show, but the commentary on him. His voice is so wetted in my head. It's
I
insane.
Yeah, it's to the point where I picked up our 8-year-old from his sleepover yesterday, and his friends, all like his friend and all the siblings were going, woo yeah.
Which is the end of this podcast,
Yeah,
knowledge bite.
Which,
which
by the way, have you ever heard the word dispetrified before?
No,
mm,
no.
Yeah, that's a new one for me too.
But this is crazy. This is like all that imagery, all of the biblical imagery, the omens, the
Well,
everything.
I've watched
So
Ancient
much.
Aliens, and they love the Old Testament, and they love South America. I can tell you
Hell
that.
yeah.
That's
Hell yeah.
that's where all the aliens are all the time.
I love it. I love it. I've never watched that show, but I feel like I would appreciate it maybe too much.
Basically, anything that was ever written is not metaphorical. It's actual encounter with an alien spacecraft.
Fair enough.
That is the
Fair
entire
enough.
show. 13 seasons, just gave it to you right there.
Take one premise and don't stop.
No
That
such thing as metaphor.
that was
Impossible.
that was also like one of the I don't know how unique this is, but it seemed unique to me in relation to Paraguay's history that a lot of like countries that overthrow at that point in time overthrow the Spanish rule or whatnot are all like trying to have like governments of democracy and share and like equality and all that. And Paraguay's like dictator. Let's,
forever and
let's
ever
turn
dot com.
left.
Francia forever.
Yeah, let's do something different.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that is another way of being like, who is batshit enough to be like, do you want to be elected forever? Like, yeah, okay, like that's sure. Like
The
it has,
people
I think it has to take a madman to be like, yeah,
the people who named me in power, they did it. It wasn't me. I didn't seize power. They put me in
no,
power. They asked me. They told me you can be in control of it all.
They want me to do a third term. I can't say no.
Can't say
I
no.
have to. I have to do it.
That's
I
what
don't want to. I
the
really
people
don't.
want.
But I've got to because I love the people too much.
Exactly. Doesn't sound familiar at all.
ugh.
Yep. Yep. Any other sections that you guys wanted to hit on?
No, not particularly. Just the one thing, one observation is that I'm just like embarrassed, terrified. I don't know what the right word is. I'll just go, yeah, embarrassed and terrified at how familiar a lot of this sounds and looks.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. This should be very otherness for me, and it feels very familiar. And it's yeah, world's crazy.
Yep. If Twitter existed when Francie was around, that would have been some wild shit.
Oh my god. This basically is we get Twitter here,
Yeah.
kind of, and comment section. So
This
yeah,
Twitter
we
and comments. That's how to
kind
read this
of
book.
kind of have it.
The compiler is just grok.
Yeah.
Tyler is Croc. That's
Com
amazing.
Compiler, can you fact check this?
This is this is not quite entirely factual. That's so perfect. And it does fire off like that. I just flipped open as I was flipping through the pages to page 129, and the line that I underlined just says, "May you piss in my beer till the end of time, you greedy fools."
Yep.
Ah ha ha! Woo, Your Excellency, always joking. I feel like this would be an amazing. Remember the guy that did JR that did the audiobook for JR that we interviewed at the end of that? He should read this book, even though you would have to take a lot of time to like code out what voices are speaking because it's not as I mean, it's not obvious in JR, but it is obvious in JR. It's not obvious in here yet entirely to me. But if you coded that out, having him read that in characters would be phenomenal. Like what you were doing, Brian. Like if he has like those bits. So that's my wish to the universe. Come on, Vintage, you got cash.
Yeah, bring it back. Do a whatever anniversary issue of this. I don't know. I do you guys feel like you understand why this book is still around? I know it's a negated way to ask it, but it's something I've been asking myself of like I'm still sort of waiting for that aha of yes, this is why this book has persisted over the years and is still being printed and sold.
The literary craft is unreal, and so just for that, I think it could be. And the ambition of it is unreal. And I don't, yeah, I can't wrap my arms around and hug it on like an actual like, you know, plot or narrative thrust necessarily, but the voice using just about every word that's in the English language somehow. It seems like, or in the Spanish language. Like I don't like it. Just yeah, it feels absolutely ambitious, and it is a high degree of difficulty, and so far just landing it. So that'd be my guess.
Speaking when you said words, is it Tisanes? Tisanes that's referenced really early on. I think is similar to your meteor situation where it's like herbal tea mixtures, but is like a very archaic word from like an earlier point in time. I picked that up as like the first page after we had our conversation last week. I read,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there we go. There's another one of these. Like, there's a lot of words in here I do not know right off the top of my head, and it's looking up a lot of stuff, which I do think it makes it hard. To what you're saying though, Kai, one thing is that it is one of the only representations of like grand novels from Paraguay that's been translated and had any sort of success. I think by Delkey keeping it in print over the bridge years between like when it was first printed in 85 and then when this one's redone in like 2019, that Delkey edition's available for like from the year 2000 onwards. That kind of repicking it up, I think solidifies it for like the next like 100 years. It'll just be one of the books that's around. But I also do think like the line by line part, like you're saying, Brian, is phenomenal. And the shifts in tone, even if these are quotes from those books that exist for a lot of the compilers' notes are unique in their writing style, and that is there's something to be said for like trying to understand the mind of a madman in a that is a dictator at a time when this was written that all these dictators are I mean there still are, but all these dictators are back in Latin America thanks to like the US government's involvement. Like this shit is coming back around, and seeing that these people can be crazy in this way or that this can be represented. I think that there's a value to that, even if as a book it's harder to get into so far. I'm finding myself enjoying being in this world more and more as time goes on and feeling more like I just enjoy it. I don't know about like what it means. I don't know why it is by any means, but like for learning about this particular moment in time and just being inside of someone who's fucking nuts is kind of fun. He might fuck a skull. He might not be on the page. He might not be on the page. He's into the Marquis de Sade. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not out of the realm of possibility.
Until proven otherwise, I feel like the skull has he has a weird sort of reverence for it, and he's not gonna drop trow just
Didn't
because
didn't he stab it with a knife though?
that's just stabbing, Chad.
It was just not okay.
Well,
It's
to be fair, I think scabbard comes from the Latin for vagina. So,
Oh man.
oh, happy dagger, run cleanly through that. There's a little double entendre there. Now we'll go back to Shakespeare.
Oh shit. shit. Oh God. So with that, do you have any final questions, Kaya, that you wanted to ask about any section?
No.
Okay. Well,
No.
do you have a favorite line? I will look up when we, well, just before we get into that, for next week, we go up through page two, up to page 216. So another like 50 pages. All this breaks out very perfectly. So that's that. But do you have a favorite line?
I do because there were very few insults this time. I forget which page it's on, but it starts I don't even know who's talking, but Candide, what is optimism? The mulatto from Tucumán shouted from a distance, a rifle shot away from the green marble tower. As far as I can tell, Candide answered him, it's maintaining how well everything is going when everything is manifestly going very badly.
I like that quite a bit. Brian?
I've got two lines. It's on page 156, and it'll bleed on to 157. In that time of beginnings, that was how things were. The troops, in very nearly their entirety, were made up of the most ignorant men, the worst felons in the country. And then a little bit lower. The behavior of the officers was worse than that of the men. Without the least respect for their functions, their rank, they became involved in disputes between peasants, settling them with bullets when their arguments of their patience gave out. Since almost all the commissioned and non-commissioned officers were related to the chiefs of the junta or of the principal barracks, the latter tolerated their most scandalous misdeeds.
Tying
Again, why does that sound familiar? This is so screwed up.
Tying into that, mine was on page 162. I've exhausted my patience and the means at my command. However, trying to teach them and rescue the least bad ones, the better to serve our cause. I've spoken to them in every possible tone of voice. I've endeavored to get them to read at least a few paragraphs of the spirit of the laws. Exasperated. He's like, I'm trying. These fucking ingrates. And then down below is the part that I was referring to where he says, look, doctor, you know all about books and scholars. Why don't you look after all this nonsense yourself? It's like, here you go, man. Keys to the kingdom. You're the only one who gets this anyways. Like, just you do it. You do it. I kind of like that. I am getting into this more and more as we go, even though it is a little bit more perplexing at times. But
Mhm.
anyways, till next week, you can find us on Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to stuff, rate, review, smash the like buttons, all that kind of nonsense. If you have any suggestions for us, questions about the book, ideas that you want to share, things that you know about that we would benefit from knowing, or if you have suggestions for future seasons that we should cover books, please feel free to email. You can email me at chad.post@rochester.edu. Otherwise, you can follow us wherever you on Instagram or whatever. I don't know where anyone is. Nobody's listening to this.
Oh, good. Where would one find a skull?